Hi, Pam. Evan and Pam. You guys have a nice flight?
Pour vivre heureux, vivons cachés. Pamela Anderson et Tommy Lee n'auront jamais pu mettre en œuvre cet adage. Leur passion sera la plus médiatisée des histoires d'amour des années 90.
Every era has a celebrity couple that sort of best expresses the values of the era, and Pamela and Tommy were very much that couple in the mid-90s.
La rencontre entre Tommy Lee et Pamela Anderson, c'est la rencontre entre nitro et glycérine. Deux enfants terribles du siècle, deux emblèmes du monde de l'entertainment, le rocker et la playmate, qui se sont toujours attirés et qui partagent le même goût pour l'outrance.
They were an object of total fascination.
You guys are so romantic. Tell me how you met.
He came cruising over with champagne, walked right over the table, sat down next to me and started licking my face. And I was like, well, nice to meet you too. I'm out of here.
Leur histoire passionnelle démarre comme un conte de fées moderne et se poursuit comme un vaudeville trash, capturé jusque dans les moindres détails par les caméras du monde entier et un Internet sur le point d'exploser.
I would say there was definitely a changing of the times after that tape came out. It showed people that there was this incessant love of sex and celebrities.
We were fascinated with Pam and Tommy because they were doing things that you aren't supposed to talk about in public and living their lives in public.
Pam and Tommy Lee kick-started probably social media in a way. You know, they were way ahead of their time.
Rarement un couple n'aura à ce point raconté son époque et inauguré les suivantes. Plus qu'une histoire d'amour, le grand roman avant-gardiste de la fin du XXe siècle. C'est en 1992 que le grand public découvre Pamela Anderson lors de la 3e saison de Baywatch. La rencontre se déroule au ralenti. Une course suspendue sur une plage paradisiaque qui va électriser les foules.
Pamela Anderson was the centerpiece of the Baywatch show. And Baywatch really catapulted her into international fame.
It's almost hard to put in modern terms who Pamela Anderson was at the beginning of the 1990s because we don't have that level of celebrity anymore. It's just celebrity is a completely different concept now. But in the 90s, she was the hottest woman in the world.
Baywatch, par son parti pris hédoniste et voyeur, devient le phénomène de société des années 90. La série la plus regardée dans le monde, culminant jusqu'à plus d'1 milliard de téléspectateurs. Record non égalé à ce jour. Pamela Anderson, dans Alerte à Malibu, c'est une image d'Épinal, une carte postale érotique des années 90. La comédienne réinvente sur le petit écran, mais en version XXL, l'image ancestrale de la pin-up, grâce à un corps qui condense sur 1,68 m tous les stéréotypes d'une époque.
There was a sort of robust, old-fashioned femininity. It was over-the-top feminine sexuality, almost a 50s kind of presentation. Athletic, very buxom, more cartoon image of sexuality. Hello. Large breasts, impossible bodies that don't exist in the world, particularly women's bodies, also men's bodies.
We'll see you all back here bright and early Monday morning. Have a great weekend in paradise. Okay, boys, let's get it out.
Baywatch was not pornography, but it was about as close as you could get to pornography and still be a television show, in that there was a narrative, but most of the show was about showcasing her beauty and her body.
She sort of embodied in the early 90s all-American sex appeal, which is funny, of course, because she's actually Canadian.
Pour Pamela Anderson, l'histoire débute à Vancouver en 1988, 4 ans avant son arrivée dans Baywatch, au BC Place Stadium lors d'un match de football canadien. Pamela Anderson est alors une jeune professeure de fitness de 21 ans, dont la beauté aimante déjà les caméras.
I was at a football game in Canada and the cameraman zoomed in on my face and put me up on the big screen and they pulled me down to the 50-yard line and introduced me as Pamela Anderson, the Blue Zone girl, because I had Blue Zone on my t-shirt by Labatt's, and the beer company's t-shirt that I was wearing gave me a contract for commercials.
Accidentellement, et par la seule grâce de son physique, Pamela Anderson voit donc son corps s'afficher partout au Canada. De l'argent facile et un début de notoriété sans même l'avoir cherché. De l'icône locale à l'icône mondiale, il n'y a qu'un pas. C'est le magazine américain Playboy qui va l'aider à le franchir, en lui proposant de s'exhiber davantage en une de ce titre phare, tenu par le sulfureux magnat Hugh Hefner.
The phone rang, and I picked up the phone and I said, "Hi, this is Marilyn Grabowski from Playboy. Do you want to come and shoot a cover? Come to Los Angeles." I said, "Okay." And she said, "If we like the cover, we'll use it." And I said, "Well, call me when it's for real." I hung up the phone. And the phone rang immediately after and said, "It's for real. We guarantee you the cover."
Did you have any reservation? Did you talk to your parents about this?
Well, I called my mother and she said she'd do it.
Straight away?
Straight away. It gave me a chance to kind of get out of a small town. And I'd never been on a plane before. So it was my first plane ride to LA.
Ever?
Ever.
Direction Los Angeles. Une ville qui, en cette fin des années 1980, est devenue l'épicentre d'un style musical exubérant. Le air metal. Affreux, sale et méchant, les Mötley Crüe, dont un certain Tommy Lee s'agite derrière les fûts de sa batterie, sont les plus illustres représentants de cette mouvance. Un groupe typique de Los Angeles dont la légende s'est forgée dans les frasques de ses membres. Tournée orgiaque, overdose, accident de la route en état d'ébriété, séjour en prison. Le triptyque sex, drug and rock'n'roll a trouvé dans Mötley Crüe ses plus fervents disciples, ses adeptes les plus motivés.
So Mötley Crüe were one of the preeminent rock bands of the 1980s. They were like cock rock, they were really sexual. They were the kind of guys who would go destroy a hotel room. This was part of their brand.
Come on, Tommy Lee. Let me hear ya!
Tommy Lee est le fondateur
You guys are fucking all right!
et le batteur peu discret de ce gang de têtes brûlées. Son goût pour la drogue sous toutes ses formes et sa consommation effrénée de groupies en font une caricature du hard rocker californien des années 80.
I know a few myself.
Call, girls, call!
008-032-338 is the number. Tommy, we can't do this.
We think of American culture in the 1980s as being very maximalist, right? People were doing a lot of cocaine. There was, a lot of interest in making as much money as possible. It was big hair and, big parties and lots of fun.
Ses infidélités, parfois avec des stars du X, lui ont aussi coûté son mariage avec la comédienne Heather Locklear, révélée dans les feuilletons Dynasty et Melrose Place. Le début des années 90 voit la hype entourant Mötley Crüe s'essouffler avec l'arrivée du grunge et de Nirvana. Avec leurs chansons expéditives, leurs t-shirts et leurs pulls en laine, le groupe de Kurt Cobain renoue avec une authenticité rock qui va marginaliser le grand carnaval désormais kitsch des Mötley Crüe et du air metal.
The peak of Mötley Crüe was really in the 80s. And then in the 90s, tastes start to change. And Nirvana became huge. And so as that became popular, the labels are not as interested in promoting Mötley Crüe. They're like, people don't want your records. You're not the hot new thing anymore.
La fièvre dépressive de Nirvana va porter le coup de grâce aux excentricités viriles de Tommy Lee et de ses amis, qui se voient rapidement relégués au rang de spectateurs des années 90. À la même époque et dans la même ville, Pamela Anderson connaît, elle, une ascension éclair. Il faut dire que Playboy, le magazine international pour lequel elle officie, est un formidable accélérateur de notoriété. Et la Playmate, une véritable institution aux États-Unis. Depuis que Marilyn Monroe a occupé la couverture et le tout premier poster central du magazine en 1953, les Playmates sont en droit d'avoir des paillettes dans les yeux. Surtout que les années 90 sont la décennie qui a transformé mannequins et top modèles en stars planétaires. Encore plus qu'avant, la beauté physique est un ascenseur vers la célébrité.
Cindy.
In the 90s, just being a model, being in ad campaigns, being a runway model could make you a major star. And there's a lot of women who really have not done much beyond modeling who came to prominence in the 1990s. And when you look at models now, there's nobody of that level.
Mais à la différence de ces nouvelles icônes de papier glacé, Pamela Anderson propose une image incandescente de la femme. Elle devient d'ailleurs indissociable de Playboy. Elle magnétise les pages du magazine. Avec 14 couvertures au compteur, la voilà devenue Playmate historique.
You've got the record, I believe, for being on the cover of Playboy more times than anyone else.
Whoa. Great accomplishment. Playboy was my university, I always say.
Yeah?
And I graduated with honors.
But when you say that was your university, what was the things that you learned from it?
What I can tell you? Yeah.
You can tell me everything.
Oh, yes, I'll tell you later. I'll show you later. No.
Hugh Hefner called me and said, I've got the girl for you. She's just came down to pose for Playboy, and Pamela showed up for the audition. She definitely looked the part. And Hasselhoff said, no, I don't want to hire her. What? How could you not? She was brilliant. She was great. He says, yeah, no, she was terrific. But I really see this as a family show, and I don't want somebody that had been in Playboy. And we said, David, come on, that can't be the reason. And he said, well, her body, her boobs are going to distract if I'm in a scene with her. Nobody's going to be looking at me. Everybody's going to be staring at her boobs.
Pamela, this way, David.
La notoriété de Pamela Anderson s'accélère au même rythme que ses histoires d'amour, nombreuses, avec le comédien Dean Cain, interprète de Superman, le champion de surf Kelly Slater, le chanteur Bret Michaels du groupe Poison, et David Charvet, son partenaire dans Alerte à Malibu.
Pam was so free with her sexuality. I mean, she just was comfortable with it.
C'est dans ce contexte que Pamela Anderson va croiser la route du batteur abrasif de Mötley Crüe. Leur histoire d'amour va s'apparenter à une nuit blanche, hallucinée. Tellement folle qu'on pourrait douter de sa véracité si elle n'avait pas été à ce point documentée par les caméras des années 90, jusque dans les moindres détails. La rencontre a lieu la nuit de la Saint-Sylvestre, le 31 décembre 1994, dans un club de Los Angeles, The Sanctuary.
I met Tommy Lee the night that he met Pam, and it's the famous night that Pam was with her girlfriends, and Tommy Lee was with other friends, and Tommy Lee, was there drinking champagne.
We met on New Year's Eve, actually, a year ago.
He just came cruising over with champagne, walked right over the table, sat down next to me, and started licking my face. And I was like, well, nice to meet you too. I'm out of here.
Is that what you do to everyone you meet?
Do you do that to everybody?
Absolutely not.
Okay.
And Pam's reaction was to go to her girlfriend and lick her girlfriend's face. And everybody started licking everybody's face. And that's how charismatic Tommy Lee was. I mean, he was the drummer of Mötley Crüe.
Les premières secondes de cette rencontre vont donner le ton pour les 3 prochaines années. Le début d'une romance sous X. Quelques jours plus tard, Pamela s'envole pour Cancún, au Mexique, pour une session photo destinée à un calendrier de pin-up. Sans y être invitée, Tommy Lee la rejoint.
So then we go to a club, and he took the ring off his friend's finger and put it on mine and said, "Do you want to get married?" I said, "Sure."
That night?
Yes.
This is the first time you've been out?
And we were married in 4 days.
You married him 96 hours after
Yes.
your first date?
Because it took us that long to find a priest.
So why did you decide to get married on the beach?
Because we were there.
Because it was just there?
Yeah, and we wanted to have cocktails, sit on a lounge chair, and the judge even was drinking chi-chis, and we were just like, okay, let's just do it. We're here, let's all, you know, sit back and relax and jump in the ocean after.
I remember calling my mother after it happened and said, "I'm married." She's like, "To who?" I said, "Tommy." And she's like, "Who's Tommy?" And she was so upset. You know, this is one thing she'll never forgive me for. But I invited her to all the other weddings.
Tommy, I couldn't get any decent pictures the other day.
He's recalled how, while they were on the plane home, they were asking questions of each other, like, where do you live? What's your life like? They knew each other not at all.
You know, I thought it was absolutely unsurprising that Pamela would act with that kind of spontaneity and marry somebody she had known for 6 days.
You know, famous people do crazy things, and it's very difficult to understand unless you're living in that kind of environment how that could sound like a good idea. I think it was a terrible idea. It was a bizarre and tabloidy moment.
À son retour aux États-Unis, le couple ne perd pas de temps et décide d'aller illico faire la fête chez un ami de Tommy, Guerin Swing.
When they got back, they came straight over, and he's like, "Hey, this is my wife, Pamela." And I'm like, "Hey, what's up?" I didn't even know who she was. And when you walk into my art studio, I had a sign-in book. She said, "I don't have a pen." And joking around in my own way, I was like, "Sign in blood," you know? And she goes, "Okay." And so I grabbed a new razor and I handed her one, I handed Tommy one, and I'm like, "Here you go." And it's kind of cute because Tommy was like taking the edge and he was like, like, you know, making a little pinprick, you know what I mean? So Pamela, no. Pamela walked over and she's like, whack. I mean, literally just shoof. And I was like, holy shit. And her just, I mean, it was like a fountain pen. And she wrote on 2 pages, like, I don't know, like, "Pamela loves Tommy." And then she wrote, "Dude, you're so cool, love Pam."
Loin d'être coupés du monde, les 2 tourtereaux vont devenir le centre de toutes les attentions. Pris séparément, ils fascinaient déjà. Ensemble, les 2 stars réunissent tous les ingrédients du conte de fées trash et déjanté, propre à vendre des kilomètres de papier.
They were an object of total fascination for the American public.
Their celebrity kind of fed each other, and as a couple, the closest you have now is what, Jay-Z and Beyonce, but Jay-Z and Beyonce don't have that edginess. They don't have that same, like, dangerous sexuality.
They were a lot of fun to cover, and because they were ridiculous. And preposterous people are fun to chronicle. So they were very entertaining at a time when the mass media was very powerful. The market for photos of people at that time was extraordinarily different than it is today. Millions of dollars could be made on good photographs. And so there was a real incentive for paparazzi to follow famous people, to try to get glimpses of them in their private life, because these images were not seen everywhere. Remember, there was no Instagram, there was no Facebook. So images of people not being public were hugely desirable in the media and by the public.
Le couple fascine d'autant plus les paparazzi qu'ils ont le sens du spectacle et que Tommy Lee, membre des Mötley Crüe oblige, a le sang chaud et parfois même bouillant.
We were at the Viper room. When we're leaving, it was just like your average night out, where it's picture, hey, questions. But that night was different than all the other nights. That was nasty. And then Tommy grabbed the camera. And when he went to grab the camera, he went to pull it away from him. The guy pretty much tripped and fell, and you could see him slam down.
Hey, Tommy!
Tommy assaults one of the photographers and throws him to the ground hard enough that he breaks the guy's pelvis.
Henry.
That is not something you would have seen in the 80s because paparazzi were not as aggressive. There were not as many flashpoints.
And this other guy went and just started spraying mace, right at Tommy, and it went everywhere. It was in my eyes. I mean, it was just everywhere.
Hands off of me. We're gonna have him arrested right now.
How dare you spray fucking pepper spray?
We didn't spray anything, lady.
I didn't do anything.
No, but your husband attacked a photographer
Well,
out
don't
here.
spray pepper spray down my
Well,
fucking
you tell your husband to act like a civilian in public.
You're a fucking asshole. You're a fucking asshole.
And then Pamela's pissed, and we're just trying to get out of there, to tell you the truth. I mean, that's the real truth of it. We just want to go. We're trying to go from the front door to the car and leave.
It was a golden age for paparazzi, really, preeminently. I would say that the Pam and Tommy story was at the beginning of a very fevered period in certainly in magazines and newspapers of chasing photos.
Si Pam et Tommy furent parmi les personnalités les plus traquées par les paparazzi, le symbole ultime de cette époque frénétique pour la presse people est à trouver de l'autre côté de l'Atlantique. En 1997, la princesse Diana perdra la vie lors d'une course-poursuite avec des photographes à Paris.
Think of it as a peak moment. Celebrity peaked in the 1990s. The idea of celebrity.
We have photographers outside of our house all the time now, hanging from trees and doing all sorts of crazy things, But we're planning on lots of landmines and razor wire around our house. We're just gonna sit in our house and go, poof, you're gone.
Il faut dire que la toute nouvelle maison du couple à Malibu attise la curiosité. Ce nid d'amour a l'ambition d'être à l'image de ses propriétaires, exubérants.
I'm a third-generation designer. My parents decorated the Jacksons, Michael Jackson's home, and over the years. I mean, I've worked for Slash, Steven Tyler, Britney Spears, Jessica Simpson, and out of all my clients, I've never had a better time with Tommy and Pam in the sense where, yes, there's a lot of drugs and alcohol, but we would just sit and have, I guess what they call it, brainstorming. With the idea behind the mansion, it's almost like a theme park for adults.
Guerin Swing, alors âgé de 25 ans, est engagé en tant qu'architecte d'intérieur. Il doit concrétiser tous les souhaits, même les plus excentriques, de ses célèbres clients. Mais à l'intérieur de la maison, une étrange lutte des classes se met en place entre le couple, leurs amis et les ouvriers qui œuvrent sur le chantier.
Anyone that wasn't part of our group, we call them the cooties. And they'd be like, oh, they're the cooties. And so the other workers in the house, not that are like that they just weren't part of our friend group.
I mean, first and foremost, Pam and Tommy are celebrities who didn't grow up with money. Like, they are, as we say, nouveau riche.
They had like stupid money. And so whatever they wanted, we would get into it. And they didn't spend money like they hated it. At the same time, whatever they wanted, we would come up with. And I remember Tommy saying, hey, man, these guys, man, they're like, I feel like they're ripping me off, and they keep charging me for this, and they keep fucking up this, and this is wrong, and then they want to charge me for them doing it wrong. And he was like really upset all the time about the construction.
There were several different waves of workers who were hired and then fired over the course of 1995 because Pam and Tommy apparently felt like they were being stiffed because, you know, why wouldn't a worker see a celebrity and overcharge them? I wrote a story for Rolling Stone that came out in 2014 where I tracked down a man named Rand Gauthier. He had been working at Pamela Anderson and Tommy Lee's home as an electrician.
Rand is one of the people who gets fired. And I think he's fired pretty abruptly, like so abruptly that his tools are still at the house. And when he goes back to get his tools, allegedly, Tommy pulls a gun on him.
And Rand told me, you know, I had never been held at gunpoint before, and it really messed with my head. So Rand now wants to get revenge. So Rand told me that he planned to steal the Lee's safe, which was in their garage, just to take Tommy Lee down a notch. And make him feel small.
We were told by our construction company, put all your valuables in your safe because the house is pretty much open to a lot of workers in here. And Pamela and I went to England and we came back and the safe was gone.
Rands stole the safe. That there's jewelry, there's guns, there's the white bikini that Pamela got married in, there's medical paperwork, there's the deed to the house that they own, and there's a high 8, which is a form of tape that you probably can't even buy anymore, but that would go into the side of a camcorder, and if you had a special machine, you could play it.
Voici l'objet totem de la fin du XXe siècle. Une cassette Hi8 saturée d'images interdites, dont le vol va en faire l'une des reliques les plus célèbres de la planète. Ce petit boîtier noir, au contenu hautement inflammable, va bousculer les années 90 et inaugurer les décennies suivantes. 58 minutes d'images brutes, pixelisées, brouillonnes et mal filmées. Et 7 minutes débats sexuels.
Oh my God. Well, we filmed everything.
Right.
Tommy and I would film everything, and we were naked all the time, so it was never a honeymoon tape. It was just him and I being in love and doing crazy things and filming it silly. It was very, I think it was, I'd never seen it. I don't want to see it.
Avant les réseaux sociaux, avant Instagram, avant les selfies, avant l'ère de la transparence totale et de l'autopromotion permanente, Pamela Anderson et Tommy Lee, les deux amants narcissiques, avaient déjà besoin de se filmer pour exister. À la fois précurseurs et apprentis sorciers, prototypes de l'être humain 2.0, ils ignoraient encore que tous leurs rushs, même les plus intimes, pourraient un jour être visibles dans le monde entier. C'est pourtant exactement ce qui va se passer lorsque Rand Gauthier va mettre la main sur les images les plus intimes du couple. Rand Gauthier, cet étrange électricien qui dispose de plusieurs cordes à son arc.
Rand had the strange dual career of both being an electrician and working at a pornography studio in the San Fernando Valley in Los Angeles.
Rand Gauthier s'associe alors avec une connaissance, Milton Hingley, réalisateur de films X. À l'époque, dans une Amérique pourtant puritaine, le porno vit un véritable âge d'or. La présence de magnétoscopes dans tous les foyers occidentaux et l'essor des vidéoclubs participent au boom d'une activité qui, depuis la fin des années 80, n'est plus associée à de la prostitution. Cette industrie, jusque-là parallèle, a désormais pignon sur rue.
There's a problem though. Porn is very recently legal, and most of the people in the porn industry don't want to jeopardize.
And so no one was going to risk their entire company releasing the Pam and Tommy sex tape without the proper paperwork.
Fin 1995, Rand Gauthier et Milton Hingley décident de se jeter seuls à l'eau au moment où ils entendent parler d'un tout nouveau média, Internet. À l'époque, seulement 9% des Américains et 40 millions de personnes dans le monde ont accès à Internet. Le streaming n'existe pas encore. Mais le web et sa réputation d'anonymat s'apparentent à un nouveau marché noir, l'endroit idéal pour se procurer incognito une vidéo. Rand Gauthier et son acolyte copient la vidéo intime du couple sur des milliers de VHS et créent des sites internet pour les vendre. 60$ pièce.
It was not clear what the internet was going to be, but the power of being able to communicate with millions of people at once obviously had enormous potential. So part of why the sex tape got out in the way that it did is because it was so perfectly timed for how the technology was developing that it sort of slipped through the cracks of, you know, legality and history.
The hardest thing to explain will be how it got stolen and how some psycho decided to mass produce it and put it all over the world.
The problem is, once they start selling the tape, other people quickly realize there's nothing special about these people. They just made copies of a tape that they got. I can make copies of this tape. And so other people start bootlegging the bootleg, and suddenly it becomes this kind of like Southern California phenomenon.
My name is Kevin Blatt. People refer to me as the celebrity sex tape broker. And what that really means is that I field calls from all over the world of celebrities and people wanting to expose celebrities doing what we all do, and that is having sex. The first time I saw Pam and Tommy having sex, obviously, was on their sex tape. And I remember sitting in my office looking at it going, holy shit, that's Pam Anderson. This was something that was just unbelievable. Because there's a part where you say, I don't know if I should be looking at this. You know, and that's what really propels a good sex tape. A good sex tape should make you feel dirty or feel like I shouldn't be looking at this. It's the feeling of looking through a keyhole and watching people having sex. That was the equivalent of watching Pam and Tommy.
La vidéo interdite devient un véritable objet de fascination en Californie. Il faut dire que le film de vacances du couple recèle de quelques moments de bravoure qui, pour certains, sont entrés dans la légende des sextapes.
Then you throw in a penis that size honking the horn of the boat, that's a whole different story. I mean, when I saw that, I was like, okay. I mean, that was the funniest part of the tape to me. But that's also what made you feel like, what am I looking at here? What am I looking at here? So, but you also saw the playfulness. You saw the romance. These two were very much in love. And if there was one thing that I could tell you, the takeaway from the video for me was how many times these two said, I love you, baby. I love you, baby. No, I love you.
I love you, Tommy.
I love you.
Look at my beautiful husband. I love you.
I love you.
To the point where it was a little nauseating. But that's what made it real. That's what made it titillating. That's what made us want to watch it, was these were two people in love. This wasn't just a random hookup in a hotel room, two people that didn't know each other. This was love.
Début 1996, lorsqu'ils découvrent que leur vidéo intime s'est répandue comme une traînée de poudre à Los Angeles et dans tous les États-Unis, le couple tombe des nues. Le moment est particulièrement douloureux pour Pamela Anderson, enceinte de son premier enfant. Avec Tommy Lee, ils décident d'attaquer toute personne possédant la vidéo et surtout de retrouver les fautifs. Ils embauchent alors un détective privé de choc, Anthony Pellicano.
Anthony Pellicano was a private investigator to the stars. He has served time in prison for his perhaps unsavory methods in uncovering information.
I was at my studio one night, and that's when Pellicano came over. I remember him walking in, and he was with another guy, and don't know how to describe it. They were like wise guys, like mafia kind of, like greased back hair, suits, shark skin, silver, suits, and cut. And the one guy had like his hand like this, like he's gonna do something. And so when he walked over to me, I stood up, and when I stood up, he pushed me back down, right into my seat. And he's like, "Where's the tape? Where's the videotape at? We know you have it," and yada, yada. And I had no idea what he's talking about. And right then, I said, "Oh yeah, right there." I borrowed, a couple tapes from him. I think it was like Alien Autopsy. It was like this movie that's supposed to be like a real alien autopsy that I watched all high and freaked out and came home and painted this big thing. And so when I said that, I think he realized right then, this guy's not the guy. The swinger, and there's a picture of Pamela.
Cette visite inopinée jettera un froid entre Guérin et ses amis, qui mettront plusieurs années avant de se reparler. Reste que les coupables sont introuvables, et que les cassettes, elles, continuent de se multiplier comme des petits pains christiques. Mais la situation va empirer avec les avancées technologiques d'Internet et la possibilité nouvelle de diffuser des vidéos en ligne. Deux ans après le vol, et alors que des milliers de VHS circulent dans le monde, la vidéo est pour la première fois visible sur un site internet, Club Love.
And that's when we really began to see how explosive the internet was really going to be in terms of the consumption of this kind of material.
Many millions of people got internet access just to see the Pam and Tommy sex tape.
En quelques heures, le serveur du site internet explose. Le bug de l'an 2000 a bel et bien eu lieu, mais en 1997.
The Guinness Book of World Records at one point said she was the most downloaded star of all time.
And it's sort of the secret history of the internet. Nobody likes to talk about it because they want to talk about the Arab Spring, and they want to talk about the Facebook revolution, and they want to talk about entrepreneurship and high ideals. But the truth is that our perversities drove the growth of the internet.
Persuadé qu'Internet ne serait qu'un épiphénomène, et pour mettre fin à une série de poursuites judiciaires infructueuses, Pamela Anderson et Tommy Lee finissent par signer un accord avec la société ayant diffusé la vidéo sur le net. Ils ne se doutaient pas qu'une clause, discrète, allait permettre sa commercialisation dans le monde entier. Le couple, floué, vient de signer un pacte avec le diable qui va longtemps donner à penser qu'ils étaient eux-mêmes à l'origine de la fuite de leur sextape.
The only reason we signed the agreement is because it was a week before I was about to give birth, and I was very focused on my obviously much more important things. And we never gave them the right to sell the videotape or distribute the videotape anywhere in the world or show it on, different television shows or anything. So we're going after everything because it's just unbelievable.
I just had started working when the sex tape scandal began. It influenced not just the celebrity magazines, but all media changed because of it. How we cover famous people, how we talk about the personal lives of public figures, all of that is wrapped up in this silly little story.
Pam and Tommy's sex tape, in my opinion, it's a piece of Americana. It's a piece of pop culture. This tape will live in infamy. It should be in the Smithsonian Museum in Washington next to Archie Bunker's chair or the Fonz's leather jacket.
But now, of course, the entire world lives in a sex tape. You know, the internet, the media is not something we just observe from distance. We live inside it. And they were really the first people to live inside the media in that way.
Le 21e siècle aurait-il véritablement commencé avec cette vidéo? Sans que personne ne s'en rende compte, la sextape de Pamela et Tommy est le moment de bascule d'un monde sur le point de passer à une nouvelle ère, l'ère du voyeurisme et de l'exhibition, de la télé-réalité et des réseaux sociaux. La sextape originelle de Pamela et Tommy va également engendrer de nombreuses petites sœurs. Paris Hilton en 2004 ou Kim Kardashian en 2007 furent promus superstars suite à leurs ébats capturés dans des vidéos virales.
Hi Paris, how are you? It's me, Dave. It's good to see you.
Paris Hilton's sex tape dwarfed Pam and Tommy's tenfold. Paris Hilton's tape to this day is still the highest grossing tape in the history of celebrity sex tapes. So yeah, Paris became a DJ. She became an owner of a perfume company, a designer. I mean, I don't know if there's a product out there that doesn't have Paris Hilton's name on it. And it all started with a sex tape, right?
You look very stylish. Yeah.
Kim Kardashian's more relevant these days because she diversified her sex tape into a billion-dollar industry. And the whole family came along for the ride, and now they're billionaires. So this is a different world we are living in.
Have a good night, Kim. You look amazing tonight. Bye.
But what's undeniable is she becomes a huge star, and so much of a star that she outpaces any taint of the sex tape. A lot of people who know who Kim Kardashian is have no idea that Kim Kardashian had a sex tape. I think what's interesting about that is that there's this idea Pam and Tommy were famous, and that's why the sex tape was interesting, to Kim Kardashian had a sex tape, and that's why she's famous. It's an inversion of where the fame comes from, what is making the sex tape interesting, and it's a tremendous flip.
Paris, you didn't stay long
Une sextape peut donc désormais être une affaire rondement menée. Mais Pamela Anderson et Tommy Lee furent les pionniers de ce nouveau genre et durent négocier la suite de leur carrière, désormais scrutée à travers le prisme du scandale.
Shortly after that season had begun, the sex tape came out, and our distributors were very concerned. And they said, you have to pull Pamela out of the next couple of episodes, just write her out. So I'm in my office kind of trying to figure out how to write her out of a script when my partner, Doug, comes in and says, don't write her out. The episode just aired and the ratings doubled from what we had before. And so we did not write Pamela out of the show. She became more popular than ever, more famous than ever.
Mais ce que Pamela Anderson a gagné en popularité, elle l'a perdu en crédibilité. Comme si la jeune comédienne était désormais un objet de fantasme à jamais enfermé dans les pixels d'une vidéo vouée à la postérité.
She was trying to move away from being just like a sex symbol and being a Playboy model, and now it's Pamela's the porn star. So nobody's really gonna take her seriously as an actress.
En 1996, Pamela Anderson obtient son premier grand rôle au cinéma dans une série B d'action, Barboyer. Pour surfer sur un scandale qu'ils imaginent lucratif, les distributeurs du film vont décider de tourner un générique à haute teneur érotique.
After I turned in the movie, they filmed a scene up front that made sure it became an R-rated movie. The studio decided that it would draw men in to see the movie. That was the biggest mistake they could have made because they cut out the girls, and by putting that on there, they lost a certain part of the market because research shows who chooses a movie for couples? The woman.
Le film connaîtra un échec cuisant au box-office. Tommy Lee, de son côté, protégé par son statut de rocker hors la loi, va sortir de cette histoire auréolée d'un statut de don Juan et d'étalon.
It's especially back then, the way sexual men were treated was very different from the way that sexual women were treated. So he doesn't really get the shame part of it. It contributes to his mystique.
Mais la surexposition mondiale du corps de sa femme à travers la sextape va développer chez Tommy Lee un fort sentiment de jalousie. Le rocker, dont les activités musicales avec Mötley Crüe s'estompent et s'espacent, se transforme en mari très envahissant.
Tommy was a rock and roller. He had his demons and he was so, I think, insecure. And when Pamela felt completely in love with him, he probably just couldn't believe it, that, you know, that anything could, like, break this apart at any moment.
Tommy was around pretty much all the time during that period. He came to Cannes, he joined us in Cannes.
So he was like very jealous to make sure that Pam didn't, you know, hang with anybody else. And that, the problem that it caused for the show was that Pam had a relationship at that time in Baywatch with David Chokachi. And he was a really great looking guy. And Pamela would come to me saying, look, there's this scene where I have to kiss Cody. Can you write it out? Just change it. Make it a hug, let us hug. And I said, no, listen, you hugged last episode. You've got to kiss, we've got to build it up to a kiss. She says, no, no, please, please don't make me kiss him. Tommy gets so jealous. And we said, Pam, look, he's gonna have to learn to control himself, and you're gonna have to convince him that there's nothing to it. Because you've got to kiss David in that scene.
Who could that be? It's after midnight.
I don't know. With any luck, wherever it is will go away.
They're not going away.
And that's the day that Tommy got really upset and his emotions took over and he lost self-control, which he later regretted, but he basically trashed her trailer. And we had to get security to get him out.
Mais la violence de Tommy Lee va rapidement se diriger directement envers sa femme. Complexé par son corps davantage marqué par les excès du rock que par ceux du sport, le musicien se met à prendre des stéroïdes. Boosté aux hormones, il devient incontrôlable.
I had holding Dylan, and he took Brandon and ran out the door with him, and I don't know, it was something I had to call 911, and then when he knew that I did that, then he smashed my head into the phone. It just got very ugly.
And here you have the father of your young son who you're holding, kicking you, lashing out.
Yeah, I haven't thought about this in a long time, but yeah, it was bad. I thought he was going to go further. I mean, I thought that he had no concept of who he was or what was going on, and I had 2 babies there, and I really thought he was going to, I don't know, he could have killed me. He could have killed me. I had no idea. I mean, I never felt like I had to call 911 in my life.
Did you beat your wife?
What was it about your anger that would make you lash out physically?
There's a lot of pressure. We've been going through a lot of stuff. Sex tapes appearing, new children, postpartum, my frustration, two new babies. Tommy comes third now instead of first.
Appelé à comparaître devant la justice, Tommy Lee va plaider coupable et sera condamné à 6 mois de prison ferme.
Very proud of Tommy. I'm happy that he took responsibility for this, and I think it's a first step towards healing. And I'm anxious for him to see his kids, and I'm sure his kids are anxious to see him.
Do you think he deserves 6 months?
I don't want to comment.
Cet épisode va signer la fin d'un mariage sous haute tension, mais qui leur aura permis de construire une famille avec la naissance de 2 garçons, Brandon et Dylan. Mais la passion chez eux est à répétition. Les 2 amants les plus célèbres de leur temps se remettront ensemble en 2008, avant de se séparer à nouveau en 2010.
She's walked away from a lot of relationships and not let public embarrassment embarrass her. I mean, she remarried people she had been married to before. She married people and then split up with them in just a few weeks.
When I met Pam, I asked her what her goals were when we were just talking, and she said she wanted to be a celebrity. She wanted to get married and have kids, and she wanted to marry a rock star. Those were her three goals. She did all three. So that's the very definition of an empowered woman who is able to achieve what she wants to achieve.
Mais finalement, qu'est venu nous raconter ce couple pendant les 3 années qu'aura duré leur union, si ce n'est un peu de notre futur? Pionnier involontaire d'une époque sur le point de basculer, Pamela Anderson et Tommy Lee auront, à travers les méandres de leur histoire, dessiné les contours d'un monde nouveau. Un monde saturé de pornographie, hystérisé par les réseaux sociaux, et où la frontière entre vie privée et vie publique a volé en éclats.
I think Pam and Tommy were really ahead of their times. What we saw in Pamela and Tommy became something that drove a lot of celebrity content in the coming decades.
They were the subject of a viral story, what we would call a classic explosion of interest, then judgment, shame, celebrity, personal attack. It is an omen of where we are now.
Pamela Anderson et Tommy Lee, les deux têtes d'affiche les plus emblématiques des années 90, n'étaient pas qu'un rocker et une playmate, mais peut-être bien des lanceurs d'alerte.